Welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Tonight, we're speaking with Michael Smith in conjunction with his Cerulean Arts Collective Exhibition, which is on view now through December 3rd. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So tell us about a little bit about yourself and your show.
Well, I've shown with Cerulean a number of times. So this is this installment. And it is a bit of a continuation of the last body of work that I showed at the gallery. I sort of call this work sort of pandemic work because a lot of my work became very site specific. I would say over the last 3 years, and I really have to kind of pin it down to a time where we weren't able to go anywhere outside of, for me, my immediate neighborhood, with some very small trips elsewhere. But it was a change for me because my previous body of work was less, or far less, site specific, but was more about a sort of a collection of shapes and images that I would lift from all over the place. And then I would have, or I did have, a vocabulary that I worked with. And the work was more of an assemblage of shapes that went together to form a composition. And then right around the start of the pandemic, where at least we were in lockdown and not really having any place to go, my work became far more about my immediate neighborhood. Now, there's some examples in here that are more sort of made up, which was what the previous body of work was about, was kind of things that were brought together that weren't necessarily made up, because they're never made up. They're never completely from my imagination. They're always anchored somewhere in reality. So this body of work is more very specific, anchored in my immediate neighborhood, except for a few pieces in this show that come from a trip that Tina and I, my wife and I, took to Italy last summer, and we spent 3 days in Venice. So I was able to take some photographs, and there are 3 pieces in this show that are from that. But the rest, the bulk of the show, is really very much my neighborhood now. And
so, Michael, it's got this like geometric quality, like a graphic quality. Your background is as a printmaker, right?
That's correct. Yeah, my MFA is in printmaking, and I made prints for a long time. I came to painting later, and I wasn't much of a colorist when I was a printmaker. I was more involved with the process of making prints, and color was really secondary. Since becoming more active in painting, color has come more to the forefront for me. So developing my own color palette. Now, people always will ask, are these the colors of the structures? And they're not. Very few neighborhoods would be this colorful. So the colors are all my sensibility. And I use color to help accentuate the shapes of, and they're almost all architectural forms. They're homes, they're garages, they're back alleys, fencing, tree shapes. And so I use the color to separate the shapes. And so I don't see it as all that different from my earlier work that wasn't so specific. It's still about the compositions that geometric and organic forms can make. It's just more about a specific place being my neighborhood.
So can you talk a little bit about your interest in geometry?
I think that probably comes, I'm sure that comes from printmaking, because printmaking for me wasn't about depth. It was about a very surface-oriented process. So I believe that I still hold on to that love of printmaking, but from a graphic sensibility. I also really do love, even though I'm not trained as a graphic designer, I just love beautiful poster design, and the way things look on the surface, very graphic, very frontal. Now, there is a sense of depth in these, but not really all that far, not really all that deep. And with my previous body of work, everything sat on the surface. So I do have some sense of depth in these works, but I don't really see them as being all that vast. Everything to me sets very much on the front of the picture plane with some sense of front to back.
So are you like outside drawing or taking pictures, or how do you generate your
Well,
source material?
initially it was sketchbooks, and I still do a lot of sketching, and that comes from my previous body of work where I just had to collect images in a sketchbook, and they would eventually go together, or I would just have them around as a vocabulary. Initially, I did start sort of taking drawings or just going and doing quick sketches of a place or a house or a group of things. It lately, out of kind of necessity, I will go and I will take a series of iPhone pictures, and then I will use those to make sketches. And sometimes I will blow up a photograph, and then I will do a tracing of that photograph once I get it to size. And then I'll start to make adjustments, because these aren't all 100% true to the area that they come from. I'm still making adjustments, sort of, I see them as compositional adjustments. So I will eliminate things, I'll eliminate clutter. I still want them to be very clean, hard edged, and about the geometric shapes and forms.
There's
So
also no people here.
no, and that kind of goes back to the whole pandemic thing when there was just nobody out. And I'm really not interested in the figurative form. I'm very much interested in the geometric shapes of the structures, with the trees, because we live in an area where there are a lot of trees, but a lot of these trees aren't the trees that are actually there. I will use them as compositional elements once I have the structure set. So they're not meant to be accurate depictions of a particular place. And so I will still take the creative license to adjust and fill in the composition as I feel that is needed.
And they're all relatively small scale.
Right. Yes, they are. I think that's, I mean, I do like the idea of the miniatures, of really sort of getting into the surface, the smaller brush strokes. So, and it's also the size of my studio. It would not be practical for me to be able to set up a big piece. Though I do think about it, it's just not practical right now, and I do enjoy sort of getting really into the piece, almost to a point of kind of fussiness with it. The little dots and dashes come really out of Cubism. If you look back at work, Picasso and Braque, there was a lot of sort of activation of the forms that they were making through dots and dashes and lines. And so I carry that sort of love of Cubist work, even though my work is a lot more colorful. There's still that activation of a space itself. So, and it helps to differentiate one space from another too. And it gives I think it gives the whole composition a little sense of buzz as well. So it makes it less stagnant.
So you
At least I
mentioned
hope it does.
Are there other artists you think about?
I do. I think of people that are, I think, Bryce Marsden just passed away, and he was always a favorite. I think, Marsden, Hartley, people, as well as, the Cubist work, people that are very sort of right on the front of the picture plane. I will find things that I like, though, all over the place, more so now that I'm getting out. But that's always been something that has really attracted me, was almost a graphic design sensibility with these. And as I said before, I do think that comes a lot out of printmaking sensibilities from early on. all the way through grad school and then after grad school. So
You went to Tyler?
yes, I did. I spent 1 year in Elkins Park and then 1 year in the Rome program. So I actually graduated from the Rome program. And so, and that's where I kind of started painting too. So I actually had a little bit more time and I was around painters. So I always knew that I could do works on paper, but again, I was sort of held back because I didn't really have my own sensibility with color at that time. I worked in a very limited palette, and it's only through sort of trial and error and looking at other artists. Philip Guston is huge with me. His later works are very graphic, very frontal, very setting on the picture plane, but I also love his sense of color. And I always tell my students and people that I work with is that I think the best way to develop your own color sense is just look towards people that you admire, and just the more artists that you look, you will build your own color palette. So it's not through taking color theory classes or that. It's just through years and years of just looking at artists and finding things that work for them and seeing if they work for you. So that's how I've sort of built my own color sensibility or my own palette.
So you're going to be teaching a workshop in conjunction
Yeah.
with this exhibition called Geometric Inspirations for Painting. Can you talk
Yes.
about that a little bit?
Yeah, I taught 2 sessions of the same class last winter, and it's very much about breaking things down. It could really attract students at all levels, which we've had in the past. And I look to simplify things, make people more aware that you can break almost anything down to a really sort of pure form. As I said, these all come from somewhere. They're not out of my head. And it's just simplifying the world or a particular, you can take a photograph or you can work from a sketch. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm just simplifying at least the things that I'm interested in into sort of their basic forms. And so we talk about that. We look at a lot of artists, a lot of people working on Instagram. So I'll bring examples. I bring a lot of books to class. And then I just show various working methods because the way that I work may not make sense to somebody else, but I can show a number of ways to sort of get to a point where you would have a starting period or a starting gate for you to begin potentially a new body of work or a new way of thinking. And so we just developed with that, and it'll be a one-day workshop. So in the past we had 3 classes, and so, but I still think we can cover a decent amount of ground. But it's really for beginners through people with a lot of experience, and so there's a lot to talk about, and a lot of different ways to approach this. But yeah, I think it's just will provide another potential creative avenue for people who might be working in this way already, but also who might be interested in sort of a change in their work.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Michael.
Okay.
It's a great show.
Thank you.
And if people are interested to sign up for the workshop, they can do that on our website, ceruleanarts.com.
Okay, well, I hope, I look forward to doing it. We had a very interesting time, and it's always sort of gratifying for me to get out and to show people what I do. And in conjunction with the show, we'll have actual work.
Yeah, right. You'll be able to come out and tour the show.
Yes, we will. So
sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks again and have a great night.
Okay, we'll see you. Okay, bye-bye.